This video is going to be a film study look at Roquan Smith, the Ravens All-Pro inside linebacker, who they acquired in 2022, mid-season 2022, for a second and fifth round pick right before their game against the Saints in New Orleans in Week 9. If I recall correctly, the Bears handled like 85-90% of the salary that year, so the Ravens only ended up paying like $600,000 for the work that Roquan Smith put in from Week 9 up until the wild card loss to the Bengals. Last year, 2023, I'm talking about, price tag obviously went up. He did sign a 5-year, $100 million contract extension, after becoming one of the only players with 500 tackles in his first 5 seasons, 2018 to 2022. I think the only other one during that time frame was Shaquille Leonard, formerly of the Colts. And then all Roquan did in 2023 was spearhead a defense that was tops in the league and in many rankings, but most notably points per game allowed, the most important one, 16.2. Smith individually, he had 158 tackles, 8 passes defensed, 1.5 sacks. Named first-team All-Pro, I think, for the second consecutive year. Now, look, I'll let you decide if the overall price tag is worth it for you. I understand people have their own opinions about inside linebackers. If they're only talking about the NFL, a lot of those conversations, to me, come from people who don't watch other levels of football. I'm talking about high school and youth football. The importance of inside linebackers is a thread that I think goes through all levels of football. But the individual price tag for 2023 was $9 million. Ridiculous value, if you ask me. The cap hit for 2024, this upcoming season, I believe is only $13.5 million. I think that's incredible value for what the Ravens are getting, and I think it goes beyond the stats. Now, I'll try to prove that to you with a couple of the sections of film that I show here to try to display that Roquan's impact, especially against the pass, is more important than just the stats that show up. I know that some people only focus on the stats or maybe are only capable of focusing on the stats because we're inundated with numbers. So we're basically trained or pigeonholed or forced, I should say, into focusing on the stats, certain stats, that is, sacks, interceptions. But when you see the impact of his pass drops here in a moment, he's a guy who takes away the quarterback's initial route options. The film shows it's there. I don't really have to do a great job of explaining it. Nonetheless, he's also very spectacular against the run. I think that goes without saying. Now, the Ravens do have monsters at defensive tackle, guys who make the play when a combo block releases them and works up to the inside linebacker. So a combo block briefly, a guard and tackle or guard and center will be working on a defensive tackle up to the linebacker level. At the moment they release him, the defensive tackle, guys like Matabike, Pierce, Travis Jones, and even Broderick Washington, they make plays. So sometimes Roquan doesn't have to, or neither Patrick Queen or Trenton Simpson in 2024. By the way, Broderick Washington played a whole lot better at certain times in 2023 than people give him credit for. So let's get to this film. I'm going to show 3 plays that I think illustrate his burst, his closing speed, his range, and the just elite recognition that he has that triggers that burst. First of all, he's an incredibly smart player. Pre-snap and once the ball is put in play, he ends up everywhere all over the field, hence the Agent Smith picks in the beginning. You will have to deal with Roquan Smith no matter where you snap the football or no matter where the intention of the football is. Here he is in the middle of the field, in between the hashes, as Xavier Hutchinson is catching the screen down here. This is the amazing play by Geno Stone at the bottom of the screen. It's a double reverse. So even when the play looks like it's going away from him, and you briefly do get Roquan stepping the wrong way, which is what occurs here, you still can't escape him. He's a guy that will end up at the football. So you've got a double reverse throwback from C.J. Stroud. And you can see the screen is set up down here to the bottom of the screen. Everyone's talked about this multiple times on social media and even directly after the Ravens' divisional win over the Titans. Great play by Geno Stone, like I said. But really nice setup by the Texans. Phenomenal design, if you ask me. Stone disrupts the blocking scheme, obviously is unable to finish off the tackle, and Roquan is coming. Ends up being, I think, technically they call it a loss of 5. I'm really not sure how if you look at the yardage measurement with the ball beginning at the -39. But nonetheless, it's an example of Roquan's speed, commitment, and range. Now, look, if Stone isn't there, this is a huge play. If Stone's not there, they have numbers in terms of the blockers and a lot of room to run, obviously, up this right sideline. But if Roquan's not there, it ends up being a positive gain, at least. Another one that illustrates his recognition and, if you ask me, ability to get to the football, get ahead of the blocking scheme, really, underneath of it. He's devastating on screens. We saw that as soon as he came over in 2022. Him and Kyle Hamilton on the field at the same time. It's like screen destroyers. It's week 12 against the Chargers. Now, look, the O-line and the tight end, they miss on everything here. Queen is also to the front side, so he's nearer to the point of attack. Austin Eckler's going to cross the face of the quarterback, and the screen's going to occur on our right-hand side, the left-hand side of the defense, so where Patrick Queen is. But Roquan's already gone. He's already triggered. And they're trying to set up a wall here, they being the Chargers. Roquan and Queen end up getting underneath of the wall, just circumventing the blocking scheme. They get a tackle for loss. I think maybe it officially goes down for Queen, but the combined recognition and range of those two is off the charts. Ravens have the same potential in 2024 with Trenton Simpson replacing Patrick Queen. Team speed is undeniably a huge asset for the Ravens. These are two plays from week 1 against the Texans. I think shows how he closes space with his speed, his burst, but also when there appears to be an open lane, it's almost by design sometimes against the Ravens defense. They kind of like give you something to just take it away with a looping defender, or in this case, straight down the pipe through to B-gap, Roquan on the side of the back. Beautiful timing on this pass defense. Kyle Hamilton tackles C.J. Stroud. I think actually ended up hurting himself on that play. And then the loop on this one, this sack. Roquan ran a 4.51, if you remember, in the 2018 NFL draft. Maybe you don't remember because he wasn't drafted by the Ravens. That would have been the third fastest 40 time in this previous year's draft, behind only Peyton Wilson, 4.43, and I think Kalen DeLoach, who was drafted by the Bucs, 4.47. Roquan's extremely fast and physical, but he also takes these precise angles, and deliberate angles, I should say, such that there is space to one side, often to the inside, but it's not enough room to be a viable option for the running back or the quarterback to escape. And so he has the ability to adjust off of that. So I'm talking about this space that he leaves here. He's not so tight to the wall that it forces C.J. Stroud to have an immediate read to go ahead and run to the sideline. He's got enough space. We used to, with our level of players, depending on the player and the speed and athleticism, I gave them landmarks. So certain guys I said 2 yards. Certain guys I said 1.5 yards. Roquan Smith probably doesn't have an official landmark like that because he doesn't need one. He's got tremendous instincts. But my point in illustrating that or trying to describe it to you is he leaves space to the inside that the running back or quarterback recognizes they can't take advantage of, giving them only one choice that Roquan knows they're going to go to or shift into anyway. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. He wasn't used in a lot of rushes or blitzes, I guess. If you ask me, he is a guy who's capable of 5 to 7 sacks in a season. Now, he does have, I think, 20 sacks for his career. Only 1.5 this past year. If that's not enough impact against the pass, statistically, we'll pause for a second here. I want you to check out his pass coverage. It's fine if you want to make a comment about the only 8 passes defensed, only 1.5 sacks, only 1 interception. I think that Roquan's like a really underrated meal or dish, like at a food truck or street food, like Lamakin. I don't know if you've ever had it. I'm not going to try to attribute it to a certain culture because there's arguments about which culture it actually belonged to first. But my point is, he's a really underrated guy in pass coverage. Simply put, he knows where to be in each coverage, and he generally fits on the correct leverage side, forces the quarterback in many instances to go to his second or third read, and by the time that happens, the pass rush has got to him. The first one that everybody probably remembers or talks about the most is from the win against the Dolphins at home, the interception. Ravens are in a dogfight at this point. It's 21-13, late in the second quarter. You'll see the scoreboard shot here in a moment. I think 2 minutes left in the half. After this pick, you may recall Lamar hits Isaiah Likely on a 4th and 7 touchdown pass, 35-yard touchdown pass on 4th and 7 to make it 28-13. So this play, if you ask me, was important because it made it easier to get separation. It kind of looks like a sky cover 3. Ravens are only rushing 3, so they drop the safety down in the form of Marcus Williams away from the trips. Additionally, outside linebacker Kyle Van Noy has dropped into the trip. So you can see it's only a 3-man rush. But Roquan shouldn't be here where he ends up. He's to the trip side, and he ends up down to the single receiver side. Well, why? Because he's freed up to do so by the scheme, number one. You have Van Noy impeding or jamming the tight end, which I love that stuff. I think it's a cheat code to be able to jam receivers, tight ends underneath 5 yards in the NFL. So also maybe there's something to Tua opening to the side, throwing to the side he opened to immediately, and we just adjusted to it. It's a real thing, don't get me wrong. I would say this. After the Dolphins scored on 3 of their first 4 possessions of the game, the Ravens made this play to gain some separation and turned it into a blowout. Prior to this, it was not. I think that's pretty obvious. There's a little backside skinny post here by the ex-receiver. Again, Roquan is to the trip side, so he's to the side where there's 3 receivers. Because they're dropping Van Noy out, inside leverage of the tight end, and then he takes over 2 underneath Van Noy, Roquan is free to read the quarterback's eyes. I don't know if this is a Roquan thing, just doing this himself, if this is a call that Mike McDonald came up with during the game or had installed already and they just went to when they needed it. I think it says a whole lot. This might be the one-handed interception, the one-handed catch, the nature of this, I think, is one of the best defensive plays from the Ravens in 2023. And that's saying something, obviously, because of how incredible they played throughout the regular season and most of the playoffs. What I like about it for Roquan in terms of pass drops is his eyes. He uses them. He uses his eyes. Now, I'm not saying they're glued to the quarterback. I don't teach my second-level guys to only stare at the quarterback and drop onto a landmark. Now, yes, there are landmarks, more specifically zones, which is the defense they're playing here, hence the name, zone. The quarterback's eyes shouldn't pull you, though, in one direction all the time. In this case, it certainly looks like Roquan is on the quarterback and all over the direction that he's looking. So as we go through the video, I want to point out to you often what Roquan does. He's not just staring at the quarterback. He's not just staring at the receiver. He's looking at everyone. He's able to sneak a peek, ping pong eyes, whatever people want to call it. He just did it here. We'll pull it back for a moment. He just did it here with the tight end. Briefly, to make sure that he could confirm the release. Maybe he understood the route concept. You do have guys that only stare at the quarterback. I'm talking about inside linebackers. You do have guys that only stare at the wide receiver. So the guys who only stare at the receiver and can't turn around and locate the ball or find the football, they don't get interceptions. They don't get passes defensed. The guys who only stare at the quarterback can be manipulated. So what's the deal? What's the preferred manner? So this is a 3rd and 11 against the Seahawks at home week 9. Some people only teach the former, stare at the quarterback, because they don't want to invest time in comprehensive teaching nature of it. Here you have Smith and Queen kind of stacked. And it's a beautiful stunt by Queen and the Ravens, how they get this done. But there's also this level of Roquan can do both. Not staring at the quarterback at all here, just locking up on the receiver in a 3 deep, 3 under scheme. Let it flow through again. It makes sense. Sometimes you want to look at the quarterback. Sometimes you want to look at the receiver. Depends on the coverage. We're not talking about outside corners. We're not talking about even nickel safeties. We're talking about inside linebacker coverage at the second level. Being able to ping pong your eyes. The game of ping pong, the ball goes left and right quickly, so you got to be able to track it. Being able to ping pong your eyes between the quarterback and the receiver, your nearest threat, the inside receiver, whether it's 3-2 or whether it's 2-3. Sometimes it's you just sneak one peek as opposed to ping pong eyes. The special thing about Roquan is he can go from doing one or the other from his alignment, but he does a great job of it in these mug looks from the line of scrimmage, dropping out and then matching the threat. Here it's a 3rd and 11. He matches and then locks up JSN. You'll lose him, obviously, here in a moment. Queen gets, crosses over to the other side, picks the left guard, so Madubuike is able to fold underneath late and get another sack. Last one that I think kind of illustrates the difference. Look how quickly he gets his read here. Obviously, he's at Mike linebacker. Ravens have rolled Kyle Hamilton into the box, so we're in a 4-3 look with a nickel in the box. He gets his run-pass read so quick. He's out of there. And that allows him to get incredible depth. Now, in this case, he's looking directly at the quarterback. It's cover 2, right? It's not, doesn't necessarily turn out to be a Tampa 2 where the Mike is turning their back and starting to run vertically, looking for a vertical from the passing strength. Here you've got a 2-by-2 formation. So what's the passing strength? You've got one tight end and one receiver to the left, the downside of the screen, one tight end and one receiver to the right, the top side of the screen for us. Roquan gets his read incredibly quick. It's a 2nd and 9, so pass tendency. Also a great job by Queen here to get in the window down to the bottom side of the screen, and him and Roquan and Hamilton basically take away Deebo Samuel and Ayuk's routes, which is exactly where Purdy is looking. Now, some of this stuff is based on coverage. This stuff meaning, where does the linebacker look? I digressed a little bit, but it's one of the things that I'm picky about, which is you got to be able to read the routes. Roquan is on the quarterback, but he's at 12 yards depth. That's what is somewhat unique. I'm not comparing him to Hamilton and Queen at all because they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. The staggered nature of this coverage, the almost 3-level coverage, is by design. But Roquan does something when he does keep eyes on the quarterback. He's able to get more depth. A lot of times when guys are focused on the quarterback, it's not the horizontal window that opens up. It's a lack of depth in their drop such that the quarterback can hit a route that develops behind them. Like I said, Queen had a spectacular route there all the way around, gets in the window, gets credit for the tackle, because I think he held Kittle to like a 4-yard gain. This is an example of both the brilliance of reading the receivers and also, I think, understanding the complementary routes, then getting back to the quarterback late, second, last, if you will. So it's a 2nd and 8 against the Browns, week 4. Roquan's down here on the bottom side of the screen. Nearly gets an interception. This is a skill. He doesn't leave the hash. What I mean is, once a route has baited you to pull towards the sideline, towards the top of the numbers, get eyes on something else, whether it's a secondary route or, in this case, the quarterback. His eyes are on the quarterback, obviously on this one. It's a subtle move, maybe I'll run it one more time through, that we're talking about. But that's the game at inside linebacker, if you ask me, is being able to use your eyes and move your body in any direction while your eyes are looking somewhere else. He's looking at Njoku, 3-2, inside out, I should say. Settles on the hash, meaning he doesn't get pulled outside of the hash, and so gets his eyes back on the quarterback immediately. Almost picks this off, intended for, I think, DPJ, who's since been traded to the Lions. When your inside linebackers can play pass coverage like this, either eyes on the quarterback in certain coverages, certain schemes, or eyes on the receivers exclusively, like the 3-deep, 3-under I showed you against the Seahawks, or be able to do both on the same play, it can almost feel like you're throwing into 12 or 13 guys. And that's the point of the inside linebackers, is trying to maximize their movement, maximize their balance, and their awareness of the routes, not just staring at the quarterback and not just staring at the receivers. Another one against the Browns, week 4, it's empty. 3rd and 3 here. Watch his eyes, all right? Now, first of all, he decleats Arthur Millette, all right? Obviously, he does. But part of that is because Amari Cooper pulls up. Amari Cooper avoids the area. Why? Because he knows Roquan's on the hash. Now, is the throw behind Amari Cooper? Yeah. But it's also possible that the throw was intentionally behind him because the quarterback is clearly looking in this window right now. Roquan, again, on the hash, not betraying it. He's allowing the underneath route, which I think is 8, to pass to Queen. So this throw might, by design, during the play, not the design of the scheme, during the play, by the quarterback intentionally throwing it behind. But either way, Amari Cooper pulls up because he's aware of Roquan on the hash. Roquan took another peek to look back at the quarterback. I know I'm not letting the play flow through. This is Brandon Stevens' interception, his first of the year. But look now, middle of the play, after reading the routes, now he's back on the quarterback. He can do both, which is what you need to do. He's oriented back towards the quarterback. He gets a knockdown. Unfortunately, the knockdown is on Millette, but Cooper had already, like I said, pulled up. Something to be said there for receivers knowing the tenacity and the reputation of an inside linebacker who's committed to his technique and who will be there on a slant or a shake slant or anything like that. That appears to be the dynamic for me on this one from a Cooper's perspective. 3rd and 5 against the Bengals. Now, he's not targeted here, and really the All-22 isn't going to do us great justice, so you get a concrete idea of what I'm talking about. First of all, Roquan reads pass quickly. It's easy on this particular play. From the end zone angle, what I want you to focus on, I'll try to run it a couple of times, is how he's able to sneak a peek or ping-pong his eyes, whatever phrase people use as coaches, between the receivers and the quarterback. Again, I have to note, he's doing this against his own momentum here. So you got to practice this. You got to drill this. First of all, it looks easy for Roquan. It's not. Crossing your own momentum, moving in this direction in a predefined, prescriptive angle while having your eyes in this direction. Feel free to try it in your own little space that you're in right now, wherever you are. And sure, you'll be able to do it. Cool. We can all do it. But when the game is happening fast and you've got a helmet on, you've got pads on, and the quarterback is at nearly a 90-degree angle or maybe 60-degree angle from the direction that you just snuck a peek, whatever that angle that I drew there is, you're glancing from the receiver while you're drifting in the opposite direction. That's a difficult skill to do. You can only do that, and the reason why I'm showing this play, it's a natural thing for Roquan Smith because he's practiced it so much and because he's so good at it. Other inside linebackers across the league, and even on the Ravens roster, are not this good at it. First down against the Colts, possibly get some feedback on this one that should be a contact downfield or interference. It's a pass defense, though, officially against the Colts. It'll bounce off Roquan's helmet. So some of us won't like it, but check out the communication pre-snap here first. Empty alignment with the running back up to the top side, to the boundary, pulling Roquan out of the box. On the motion by Moss, Roquan communicates to Queen, go on ahead and take the running back. I'm going to take the tight end. Now, Roquan knows that you got a 5-man pressure here by the Ravens. So the quarterback's got to get rid of the ball quick. We actually don't get to him, but Minshew recognizes it. Roquan's got the tight end locked up. There's definitely heavy contact. He's not turning to find the football. He shouldn't be, if you ask me. Now, there's a lot of people who think, find the football. But there's situations in areas of the field that, yes, you need to. This is not one of them. For me, the way that I coach the kids, I would call this recovery mode. Not here. This is recovery mode for me from the standpoint of Roquan's been motioned into the box, ran all the way across the field. If he had lined up here and ended up in this position, it may not feel like recovery mode to him. But being as he was all the way outside the bottom of the numbers, forced to motion, back in and switch with Queen pre-snap, this feels like recovery mode to me watching it. I would identify this as man. And if you just took a snapshot of this right here, and this is one of my problems with people only focusing on snapshot, you could say turn and find the football and knock the ball down. This feels like recovery mode to him because he's in man. He didn't originate from the middle of the field, his normal position. You may not be familiar with that term, or if you are a coach, you may have a different phrase or terminology that you use with your kids. It's one way that I let the kids know to, hey, if you feel like you're in recovery mode, don't try to find the football. Just react to his hands, react to his eyes, or whatever that receiver uses to let you know he's getting ready to catch the football. Finally, a 3rd and 8 against the Bengals. Another one where he's lined up near the line of scrimmage. This is week 2. The Ravens 2 deep, 4 under coverage, so they're bringing 5 again. Roquan's dropping out to the trips side. You can normally tell which guy he is because he's got his hands on his knees, almost both of them stacked on top of each other. There is a opening to the X side potentially, but the Ravens are relying on forcing the quarterback to get rid of it quickly. Anyway, Roquan matches the depth of the receiver. I think it's Boyd. Darby also does a great job down here. Sees the vertical by one. He knows he's got safety help over the top. So he releases that vertical to Ardarius Washington, the safety, and then tries to find the out by Higgins. This is a great throw by Burrow, for real. Spectacular, if you ask me. It's caught by the tight end, actually. It was caught, but ruled out of bounds. The point is, Roquan matches depth and matches the potential timing or speed of the route such that the quarterback on inside he's always on inside leverage, and the quarterback doesn't have access to the easiest throw, which is a straight line. He has to make a little bit more difficult throw, maybe lower percentage throw, in this case to a tight end, all the way up the sideline, 1 foot down but not the other. My point in showing you all this is to try to talk or address the point that some make, which is Roquan Smith does not have impact against the pass. 9 career interceptions in 6 years, only 31 passes defensed. And they'll say, Coach, I don't think he's that good against the pass. To me, that's an over-reliance on stats, and that's a real weakness in football evaluation these days, if you ask me. I think a lot of people recognize that, the over-reliance on stats. Now, let's spin it a little bit. That's one of the reasons why a company like PFF is needed, to quantify some of the plays that I'm showing you, where someone like Roquan doesn't get a statistical attribution for, quote, taking away a route by his leverage, by the depth of his drop, and by being on the correct side as the receiver. You can only do that if you're able to keep eyes on the receiver and the quarterback at the same time, which you really can't do. But the point is, Roquan's able to ping pong his eyes between them and make it look like he does. Now, on the PFF things, I'm a huge fan of the product that is out there, of the service that's out there, what it's claimed to be. But if you didn't obscure the evidence, like, for example, if you can show me the way they graded Roquan on some of these plays, then I would be all for their evaluation being used. I would be all for their evaluation being looked at unanimously as accurate. I reject it wholeheartedly until they start to show me the grade for each particular play, how you got it on a snap-by-snap basis, and who's the person responsible for the grading of each play every week. Then I'll pay attention. But absent that, to me, it's meaningless. I don't know if Roquan was a 68, a 78, or an 83 against the pass in 2023. But if you watch the film and you agree with what I'm saying, I hope I've convinced you that he's pretty high level in coverage. Go back and watch it again and mute me if you want. If you only focus on 1.5 sacks and 5 PDs, or 5 or 8 in 2023, and 1 sack, then some would say, oh, he's just another inside linebacker that doesn't impact the pass game. That type of analysis is a waste of time for me. The over-reliance on stats is unoriginal at best and disingenuous at worst. Roquan Smith takes away routes by reaction and by alignment and by movement post-snap, and that helps the pass rush and helps other guys in coverage. This next section of plays is going to be all Roquan Smith's ability in the run game as a defender downhill at angles. The run fit section here is going to be completely from the end zone angle for 2 reasons. Number one, I know people enjoy it. You get feedback all the time that people like the end zone angle. Number two, partially because I had to edit this video so many times, the end zone angle seemed to be the one that was safer. It seemed to be the one that went through the YouTube copyright process without any notations. So here you go. Roquan Smith is incredibly adept at finding the correct gap, and when you leave him unblocked, it's damn near impossible to get anything done. Now, this play actually doesn't count. You end up with a face mask on Tavius Robinson over here on the right-hand side of the screen. It's late, but I think this play is indicative of a couple of things. Number one, you cannot leave Roquan Smith unblocked. Otherwise, you don't get anything accomplished. If you haven't noticed already, he's here at Mike linebacker, lined up in the A-gap. Number two, this is definitely an example of a D-tackle winning and therefore protecting his inside linebacker. So this is Broderick Washington winning in front of him. He gets to the guard, basically, such that the guard can't move up and allow the tackle, 77, to overtake him. And Roquan is just able to free run over the top. Now, the Rams, to their credit, they're trying to keep the defense honest here. So you've got motion. 2 receivers were over there off screen to our right. So you only have 1 receiver off screen over here. To the Ravens' defense's left, our right. We can't see him because we got the end zone angle. Not many teams do this, run back to the 1 receiver side without a lead blocker. You're just talking about a zone or a stretch or outside zone scheme. back to that side. Not many teams do this. There's a real tendency for teams to not get it done. Anyway, motion to the field to try to pull Roquan out of there, and the Rams are running back to the side where you've got a 1 and a 5. So it makes sense. 11 personnel, nickel defense on the field. There's the Ravens' nickel defender, Kyle Hamilton. 1 technique, wide 5 technique to the boundary. It's where you want to run some of the zone schemes. By default, Roquan really almost goes too far on the motion, but because of Washington winning, the left tackle can't overtake Broderick Washington, and that leaves Roquan free to run. Now, look, Queen and Robinson are also there. That's the point with team defense. That's the point with the Ravens defense. Have so many fast, athletic guys that arrive at the same time, creating these huge collisions. The ball did move forward, like I said, because of the penalty. You see the flag on Tavius Robinson. This is another example of Roquan running free. It's a 4th and 1 against the Texans, week 1. It's just a bad situation. If you can keep people from getting up to him, when he can run free, he will take the correct angle. He will find the football. Like I said, 4th and 1, the Ravens are pinching or stunting Clowney in. So he's filling the interior gap. And then Queen is kind of setting the edge here. Roquan's going to fit between those two, technically like an alley player almost, and then make the tackle for the stop. I also do want to say that people talk about bend for an edge rusher. I like to see these plays where like an inside linebacker or a strong safety or a nickel is flying in one direction, so in this case to his left, and then has to put his cleats in the ground and jut back to the inside to make the tackle. Maybe you don't want to call it bend, and that's fine, but somewhat similar. You're going back against your own momentum and have to make the tackle against the grain of where your cleats, where your toes were headed. It's not easy. Again, I think it illustrates how athletic he is, even though at this point Roquan probably doesn't have the reputation as a uber athletic inside linebacker. It's a 3rd and 1 against the Colts, week 3. Now all 11 offensive players are in the picture for the Colts. Roquan and others are in on the tackles. Zach Moss gets the first down. I think he gets 2 yards on a 3rd and 1. Now I don't think that Roquan simply jukes Quentin Nelson here, because he's actually responding, he being Roquan, to the running back's movements. Roquan's tracking the back, but you see this a lot, whether it's on inside run, whether it's outside run, toss, angle flow, whatever. Roquan has the ability to track running backs and make blockers miss. He can attack the blockers downhill sometimes if he needs to, but he's also really adept at stuff like this. Stepping to the outside to draw Quentin Nelson outside, and then coming back inside underneath as a defensive tackle. I think it's Michael Pierce is making contact with the offensive lineman such that Moss has to redirect and causes Quentin Nelson to whiff. It really, I'm going to make a combat sports analogy later in my final analysis of this, and some of you might be too young for it, but to give a hint, Roquan reminds me of like an old school boxer that nobody wants to deal with. Somebody who's really good at everything and could hang around until 35, 36, 37 years old in the fight game and still be a handful for young up-and-coming guys. I give you a specific fighter later. It's a 3rd and 1 against the Browns, in that really it's difficult to fathom or understand this home loss to the Browns at this point. But in any case, watch how the Ravens pinch Van Noy here to create a gap exchange with Roquan. Now, Watson clearly isn't reading it post-snap. Maybe he did a pre-snap count, Watson, and determined, okay, this is going to be a give. Browns were going quick, trying to convert. Broderick Washington also just tosses Teller out of the way. It's also possible that Van Noy might have played a role in that by falling into his lower body, or I should say making contact into his lower body. But nonetheless, you see another play example of Broderick Washington being a badass against the run. Anyway, Roquan scrapes tight. And so I'm going to go back to my original discussion point about how much space to leave off the wall. Roquan is tight here. Now it is 3rd and 1, such that the running back really doesn't have a great option here to gain a whole lot of yards, but it's short yardage, so he's just trying to bully forward and go get it. Also, but let's talk about the complementary aspect of this play. If Watson keeps it and runs to the outside, Roquan isn't so tight to this wall, the backside of Washington and all the down box, that he wouldn't be able to run outside and go get Watson. You never know what guys are reading, quarterbacks in certain situations. Is he actually reading the inside linebacker at times? Is he reading the defensive end? I don't think he's reading anything here, to be honest with you. And the Browns, look, I think, did pick up the first down on the next play. But the point that I'm getting back to is Roquan's ability to bend back in, similar to that fourth down play against the Titans where or Texans, excuse me, get your cleats in the ground, close down. It's a somewhat similar body position, if you ask me. Against the Colts, now the awareness of Roquan here, I think, is on full display. Some people say, well, he's unblocked here, Coach. Well, why is he unblocked? First of all, it's an unbalanced line by the Colts. So you do have a tight end and then a backside offensive lineman, 3 offensive linemen to one side, so unbalanced. Roquan's alignment, if this was a tackle, would be a little bit wider. Roquan's right foot would be somewhere in that area, left foot somewhere in that area. As it stands, he's reflected the unbalanced line. So when this lineman pulls to go try to log block Patrick Queen, he can fit directly off of the combo by the center and Nelson underneath of 75. His alignment pre-snap is often perfect. Does motion sometimes move inside linebackers a little bit further than I would like it? Yes. But Roquan Smith is almost always in the right spot. Pre-snap, post-snap, his ability to recognize whether he needs to engage a blocker, shed, some people call it stack, whatever, or try to juke a blocker is unparalleled. His ability to recognize that during the play. Which skill do I need to use here? Do I need to dodge, juke, go underneath, over top of the blocker? Or do I need to be physical and try to set him to my correct leverage side and utilize my teammate? I think Roquan Smith is one of the best football players in the league. Now, I understand that there's people out there who would say, Coach, I don't think an inside linebacker can be. That's no problem. As far as my combat sports analogy, I compare him to Roberto Duran. He reminds me of a guy who is no bullshit and could show up on a day's notice and fight or compete. We were very blessed and lucky to be able to get him. The Bears have, you got to give credit to the Bears. They have done a nice job of building their team, and I'm not just talking about Caleb Williams and some of the offensive players they've acquired. I'm talking about the defensive guys they've drafted. Tyreek Stevens, Jaquan Brisker. They've collected some good defensive players. They're going to be a better football team in 2024 than people give them credit for. But I think this trade was an absolute win for the Ravens. Losing a second-round pick, having the Bears pay almost all of his 2022 salary. Feel free to correct me in the comments section if I was wrong about that number. It seemed to me that it was like 85, 87, 88% of his salary in 2022 was paid, or of his remaining salary was paid by the Chicago Bears. Basically, the Ravens were able to get him for nothing to finish 2022. And at the point that we traded for him, week 9, going down to New Orleans, Lamar Jackson's still healthy. We're not in the situation that we were the last 2, 3, 4 weeks of the season where we have to go on the road and try to win a football game with Tyler Huntley, which we almost did, obviously. You guys will have to let me know if you appreciate the film study video that I did on Roquan Smith. I did spend more time on the pass coverage stuff, and that was intentional because I reject the notion that inside linebackers play no role in the pass game, number one. Number two, some people that I know make statements, we should just take inside linebackers off the field on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. You're talking about a situation where you're inviting the run on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. Sounds like a win for your defense, right? I would agree. However, you're also talking about players that are the leaders of your defense. Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen last year. Guys who are responsible for getting players lined up, guys who are responsible for recognizing the formation on 1st and 2nd down. You can't just suddenly shift that role to 3rd down. Number 2, that's my second point. You need consistency. You only have a certain number of people to put out there on the field that are responsible and intelligent enough and have the authority to be able to shift guys around and move them into the correct look. Finally, Roquan Smith. My third point would be Roquan Smith, I think, is an incredible pass defender. What his pass rating is, I don't care. You can feel free to let me know in the comments section. It really doesn't matter to me because I watched the film, and based on my own understanding, what I think I see in certain coverages, Roquan is very adaptable and versatile across multiple coverages. He stays on the correct leverage side. The two plays where he drops out from the line of scrimmage that I wanted to illustrate the most against the Seahawks at home in week 9, and then on the road week 2 against the Bengals, that third down completion / incompletion, Burrow to the tight end up the right sideline. Roquan has got perfect leverage. He's a brilliant football player. I think he's on a Hall of Fame track. He's one of my favorite players in the league. As an aside, I saved this until the end. If you're old like me, you know the story, the movie about the Matrix. There is a theory, it's a weird theory, that Agent Smith was actually the one. That Agent Smith was actually, and if you go and you read all of the things that the Oracle said about the one, Keanu Reeves, if you read them, they actually do apply to Agent Smith. Am I saying that I think Agent Smith and Roquan are the one for the Ravens football team? No. But I think as far as from a defensive standpoint, he is. Kyle Hamilton is an otherworld safety. Justin Madubuike, all-pro defensive tackle. We've got talent at all 3 levels. Great corners, including Nate Wiggins, who we just drafted. I think Roquan is the centerpiece of the defense because he's able to play downhill at angles against the run. Underrated, maybe underutilized blitzer as well. And then in pass coverage is exquisite and super prepared for the route concepts that we see. One of my favorite players to watch. I've watched too much inside linebacker film in the last 2 weeks doing videos on Roquan Smith and then Jack Campbell, a young inside linebacker for the Lions. So I got to kind of move away from inside linebacker film here now. Appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the plays that I chose to illustrate Roquan's skills. Maybe I took too long or went too in detail with some of the things that I thought. The Agent Smith Matrix comparison, maybe it was a home run, maybe it was a double, maybe it was a swing and strikeout. You have to let me know. Appreciate you guys' time.